And away we go. Friday. Or is it Monday? Is it Wednesday? Hell, it could be Sunday. I don't even know. They're all the same these days. I'm sure we're all in the same boat for the most part. There are a lot of people out there that have been working this whole week except for Wednesday. But for everybody else that have been dealing with sickness and kids and babysitters off and this and that, I'm in that boat as well. But let's get to it. We got a lot to discuss. Good afternoon, everybody. Sean Bray, Sean Barnard with you here on a feel-good Week 18 Football Friday. Everything is just going to be relaxed with the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. However, there are a couple games that actually do have some meaning, and we'll hit on a little bit of those, as well as what took place yesterday in the world of college football now that we have our Final Four set. 76ers played a late game. It was entertaining, but for the wrong reasons. Sean Barnard joining me on this venture, this beautiful Friday here. We're supposed to get snow on Monday. Add that to the mix. Sean, how we doing today?
Yeah, doing well. Can't complain. I got a little bit of the college football bug as well. I'm getting into that as well. The playoffs kicking in. Finally, a little bit of competition in these games here. And of course, for me, always Sixers staying on center stage. Not the results that we're kind of hoping for on the West Coast trip. Back-to-back, pretty brutal losses for different reasons against the Kings and the Warriors. The Kings, a pretty frustrating loss that they absolutely blew at the end. Did not score in the final 3.5 minutes of the game there. Kings ended the game on a 15-0 run and then carried that right over to last night against the Warriors, in which it was basically an embarrassing performance from start to finish last night from the Sixers. So not what you want to see from this team when they seem to be turning things around, but there's going to be ups and downs is kind of how I'm taking it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I appreciate your work ethic, but I could have went without seeing that Sacramento Kings breakdown because I did fall asleep and woke up to the fact that the 76ers blew it 2 nights ago. And that was an extremely winnable game. Win percentage up as high as 99%, 98%, something like that I saw. And then, as you pointed out, did not score a point in the final 3:30 or whatever it was. But then you break it down yesterday, and just to see, them running around with their like a chicken without its head. All right, with its head cut off. That's the saying. Sorry. Just really ugly basketball down the stretch in a game that they should have won yesterday. Last night, not so much. And we talked a lot about vintage Steph. We'll get into the Sixers because I want to open up with, of course, what took place in the world of college football and Notre Dame. They were favored when they went off. I think a lot of people were going, yeah, all right. Come on, man. It's the SEC. But the big talking point at this point in time is, for previous years, how many years? 5, 6. I'm sure we can go even deeper than that. The SEC was the premier number one conference in college football. I still think it's one of the best, if not the best. But at the end of the day, there's some good football teams in these other conferences. And then lack thereof a conference with Notre Dame. And yesterday, Notre Dame, they didn't play a perfect game by no means, but they played a great game. And special teams and defense led the way, forced 2 huge turnovers. But you have to be honest with the assessment as well that Kirby Smart, man, he might have cost his team that game with the thought process of being aggressive with the backup quarterback, getting
Parker
in there.
Jones.
Yeah, Parker Jones too. Poor kid. And just the fact that it's their final minute of the first half, and you could take a 6-3, right? Would that be 6-3? It was 6-3. As far as what the score was at that point in time, so 6-3, you're losing into the half, and instead you get aggressive. Next thing you know, it was a sack that turned into a fumble, and then of course the touchdown on the next play. So, and then they returned the kickoff. So it's really hard to assess that, to say that was it. But man, Notre Dame, got to give them credit. A big-time performance by the Irish to go in and win that game with a lot at stake and everything that was into that game with, of course, the tragedy down there in New Orleans. Sad stuff, but, man, both teams played their hearts out. Notre Dame comes out on top. And now, Sean Barnard, we get the matchup that I wanted, which was Penn State, Notre Dame. This is, this takes me back to my childhood growing up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I had friends that were diehard Notre Dame fans. You almost had to pick a team. I was a Notre Dame fan growing up. I was a Notre Dame. Rocket Ismail was my guy. I loved Rocket Ismail. But as I got older, I kind of left Notre Dame alone and was just a fan of everything. From Michigan, I got the Ray Lewis jersey here. Like, I loved college football all in all, but Notre Dame was my team when you had to pick between the two of Notre Dame and Penn State, and that's what you had to do up there in northeastern Pennsylvania. But of course, down here, it's going to be a fun week of conversation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it absolutely is there. And I won't brush over the Georgia being without Carson Beck. I do think was a real deal storyline there. I will say Beck has been underwhelming, and I think I'm putting that nicely for the vast majority of the season. So I wouldn't say that he's been the difference maker that I think everyone expected him to be this year, but certainly the story is a little bit different when you have the guy that you started this entire journey with this season, taking the snaps under center there. With that being said, I was really impressed with Notre Dame yesterday. I thought Marcus Freeman had a clear game plan in place. Riley Leonard, I thought, was excellent at limiting the turnover opportunities, being really smart with the ball, and he's just an absolute weapon when he has the ball in his hands with his legs and taking guys on. He's a physical. He's willing to put his body on the line. The dude is a winner, and I thought that they did everything right to put themselves in the best position to win that game, and ultimately that's what happened there. So it's kind of funny. That's become my sort of connection to Notre Dame, is I'm very much a Riley Leonard guy. Loved him at Duke, and he became like one of the dudes I loved watching. So kind of followed him over and have joined Mark Henry Jr. a little bit with loving the Notre Dame Irish this year, but happy for them to kind of get over the hump and win one. Obviously, there's still work to do, and I think that they still have a pretty good chance at winning this next game. So excited to see how this all goes down.
Right now, Ohio State plus 110 to win it all. Notre Dame plus 360. Texas plus 380. Penn State plus 475. So some pretty tight numbers there from the odds perspective. I would have thought it would be a little bit more lopsided, but you're still getting plus money on Ohio State. And I don't know anyone that's picking Texas to beat them. And if they get to a national championship to win the game, I just don't. Yeah, it's going to be tough to slow down Ohio State the way that they're playing right now. But, hey, man, there's a lot of football to be played, so I'm not trying to crown anybody just yet. Shout out to our good friend Mark Henry Jr., host of the Tough Cover Radio Show, who has pointed out via the Gambler Gang text chat that we were all having fun at his expense when they lost to Northern Illinois back on September the 6th of last year. And now what? Now what? Where's everybody at? Now what? He is correct on that take. The only thing I would say is I had Notre Dame winning yesterday, and I don't even think he did. All right, so let's just call that out. But credit where credit is due. Notre Dame has just turned that loss, put that loss behind them, kept winning football games, put them into this spot here. Marcus Freeman is the real deal.
Yeah,
that defense is ferocious. Like I said, special teams, they've been making plays. Defensively, though, it's more than just sacks. Like, yeah, they have some good defensive numbers as far as sacks are concerned. They were talking about that in yesterday's game. But it feels like that's a team that comes up with the big play. And, I go back to that USC game where it was tight in the second half and all of a sudden pick six. And I think they might even return another one. There's been other games that off the top of my head that I know Notre Dame's defense just opportunities there, and they seek and destroy and they make that play. And that's what we saw yesterday. And Georgia is a damn good team. But, man, Sean, let me ask you this, because like, I get it. Penn State beat Boise State. Penn State beat SMU. But is there something to be said about the way that they're playing right here, right now? And the only reason why I'm asking this question is because if Penn State did play that Georgia team yesterday, I think I'm taking Penn State. I am.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel that way.
I think I agree with that. I think I think either one, Penn State or Notre Dame, would have beaten Georgia yesterday. I'll say for Penn State specifically, for me, it pretty much fully comes down to Drew Aller. That I think we know what they have as far as the boys in the trenches, the defensive line that they have, Abdul Carter, and everybody that's going to make an impact defensively. There's days where I watch Drew Aller where I think, okay, I see the vision. This guy could be a potential NFL guy. I see everything that he's growing into. And then there's days where I still question it, and I just don't like the way that he reads the football game or some of the decisions that he makes there. So it's basically from here on out, whatever version of Drew Aller you get fully dictates what the ceiling of this team is and if they are legitimate national championship contenders. I think that's the reason that Drew Aller was brought to Penn State, one of their highest recruits, or the highest recruit as far as a quarterback in several years, and I think even decades it goes back to. Remember reading up on that. So he's got to be the guy for them. If that can happen, they can go places. I don't know if I'm fully bought in to Drew Aller being there just yet.
Yeah, look, he played well in the first half, played really loose. I've been using that word a lot lately, but it just feels like, look, with all the pressure and everything, the build up, the hype going into these games, you could definitely see a team being a little bit more hesitant. But man, when you see these teams like Ohio State playing loose, polar opposite of what they looked like against Michigan, yeah, you could see them just slinging it. And Drew
Yeah.
Aller, the same thing in that first half against Boise State. And again, want to give credit where credit is due. Mark Henry Jr. is quick to point that out. Like, guys, don't you think Notre Dame would look great versus Boise State
Yeah.
or SMU? And yeah, part of me does agree with that. But at the same time, I do want to give Boise State a little bit more credit than the odds makers did, than people will. I feel like they were one dimensional. Genty's a hell of a back. And Penn State, look, he still got 100 plus yards on 30 plus carries. But the quarterback needed to make some plays, and they were able to be opportunistic and get the 3 interceptions in that game. I don't know if that will be the case against Notre Dame. Riley Leonard, I don't see him making those mistakes. I also don't think that they're going to have to throw the football like that, like Boise State needed to do against Penn State. But, man, I think this is a pretty even football game, and you're going to make me make a selection. I'm going to stick to my guns, and I had Notre Dame getting to the championship game before this all started. I'm not opposed to changing my pick. That doesn't mean anything, and I should have done it a little bit more. Should have been more outgoing with the Oregon and Ohio State game, because I definitely was feeling a little different as that game was leading up. But I'm still going to go Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to advance to the championship game next week. It's only a 1.5 spread right now in DraftKings Sportsbook. Notre Dame is a 1.5 favorite. 46.5 is your total. Game being played in Florida, in Miami at the Orange Bowl. So we'll see what happens with rain, weather, all that nastiness. But if it's a clean track, I like Notre Dame, and I think their defense is for real. Penn State, they have a little bit better of a passing game, but I think Notre Dame's going to get there. And Drew Aller, they're going to knock him off his spot, and that's going to be the difference in the game. Anything for you right now as we sit about a week out?
Yeah, I'm riding with Notre Dame here, and I get like we obviously can dive into the intricacies of this matchup, but to keep it pretty simple here, I believe in Marcus Freeman in a big game more than I believe in James Franklin, and I believe in Riley Leonard in a big game more than I believe in Drew Aller. Yes, there's more to this, but I don't think that the gap is that vast as far as what these defenses are, the skill positions. I don't think there's that significant of a difference. Penn State, I think you can certainly make the case that are a little better suited in both those categories there. But to me, I think it comes down to coaching and quarterback play for the most part. And I think both those point in Notre Dame's direction. So I do think that they ultimately get over this hump, take down this Penn State team. And I think both Notre Dame and Penn State are probably the 2 biggest beneficiaries of this expanded playoff format. So kind of like that they're, having an opportunity to face off, and we'll see who earns it from here.
Actually, I would push back on you and say Ohio State, because they weren't getting in.
I still can't believe they lost to Michigan, man. I can't believe that team looked like that against Michigan.
Tight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy, right? Because you get these guys out there now, and you're just like, come on, man. Where was this team all season long? This team should be undefeated. This team should have set records. And with Chip Kelly, there's like no excuse. The talent that they have on this team. But man, they are clearly looking like a whole different team right now. And to go up against Oregon, who yes, it was a tight game, but they won the game. And you could take some good things from that performance. And it looked like there was none of that, none whatsoever in that game. They were guessing. That game was over as soon as it started. Jeremiah Smith, absolute beast, 7 grabs, 187, 2 touchdowns. Sean, they're saying essentially that this is probably the best player that Chip Kelly has ever had.
Wow. I've seen some Julio Jones comparisons for him, which I don't hate at all. And a guy that I believe he's still got 2 more seasons of college football after this, correct? So, yeah, we're going to be seeing this guy for a while.
Yeah, which was surprising to me that rule didn't change. He's like, really? If he wants to come out to the NFL, and you're talking about a guy that's going to be the overall number 1 pick, and teams will tank, like Dan Orlovsky said, like he's got to stay at school more than 1 year. I don't know. Like, I get it. At the end of the day, we're talking about grown-ass men at the NFL level, but if the kid is as good as advertised, what's 1 year? Let him go to the NFL and make that money. But then again, the NIL, so who knows what that's all about. All right. Anybody beating Ohio State in your mind?
I don't know what to make of Texas, to be perfectly honest. That like I can't decide whether I want to brush this off as like they're just going to look way better than that, or that like these are real deal concerns. That Arizona State obviously giving them a run for money. That game going to overtime, an awesome game of football to watch there. But I thought Texas was going to roll in that matchup, and that clearly was not the case there. So I still kind of believe that we're going to see a better, I guess, showing from Texas moving forward, but I don't know. My thing with Ohio State is I still have the lingering, like the Michigan game was pretty scarring for me. The interception by Will Howard in that one was one of the ugliest interceptions of the entire season. Really felt like they didn't show up at all. And that version of them is still in there somewhere. So if Ohio State plays their best football, I don't think anyone can touch them. But I just don't have that same level of confidence they can do that on an every game basis.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. As far as where I stand right now with Texas, I had Arizona State plus the points. I had Arizona State in the bracket upsetting Texas. So that one was a really tough spot because if that goes down, I might be in a position to win. But oh well, what are you going to do? You roll on. Those are the breaks. But at the end of the day, 6-point spread, the almighty equalizer at DraftKings Sportsbook. I am leaning towards Ohio State covering that number. I don't even care if it gets to 7. Texas, though, the thing that has my attention is Texas secondary is really good. Those guys were all over the Arizona State wide receivers. Of course, we're talking about a different monster, Arizona State versus Ohio State. But I think the secondary is up for battle, and that's where you got to have good secondary. You got to have players that could stick to those receivers. Texas, if they're able to get after the quarterback, then that's obviously going to make life easier. I don't know if that's going to happen, but right here, right now, I'm leaning towards Ohio State covering that number. And yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win the national championship, but so do the odds at plus 110 right now. DraftKings Sportsbook, of course, you can find Sean Barnard over at dknetwork.com. All of his great content. What do you got cooking up for the website this weekend, sir?
Yeah, I'll be writing immediately after this, starting at 11 here. So, or starting in pretty soon after this here, we'll be doing some prop bets for each of the Saturday games. Be doing some NFL slate tonight. So, NBA slate tonight. So, diving into all that stuff. So, yeah, and a little DFS stuff that I got thrown on my plate. Somebody else taking off. So, making up for everyone here.
Nice. I like that. All right. One more note on college football. And of course, we opened up talking about the New Orleans tragedy and somewhat. I know I spent a little bit more time on it yesterday. Just a terrible situation. 14 people passed away. So many other people were injured in this. And I did not know of this gentleman, and unfortunately, he lost his friend Tiger Beck, who was a Princeton University football player. But Ryan Quigley is a local cat who was a 2-time MVP, Philadelphia Catholic League.
Wow.
He's 26 years old. He went to Lansdale Catholic. The Inquirer has a great article up. It's unfortunate why we're reading about it, but at the end of the day, just want to shine a light on Ryan here. And he's obviously an Eagles fan. I saw him on social media. He did just post something this morning about losing his best friend or his friend. Regardless, doesn't matter. Just terrible, terrible situation. So, of course, all of us here at the Gambler Gang, all of us Eagles fans, everybody here in Philadelphia. Ryan Beef Coyle pointed out that actually his high school, I believe, scrimmaged him, if I'm not mistaken. And, the kid was pretty damn good to be the MVP in the Catholic League and 2 times in his high school career, which is just insane. There is a GoFundMe. I have no idea the extent of his injuries. I don't care to know, but we're pulling for him. Thoughts are with him and his family. And of course, the unfortunate circumstances with Tiger Beck and his whole family, just god awful. But, we got to roll on here. We're going to power through it and hopefully be better from this moving forward. But man, thoughts definitely with Ryan at this point in time during his recovery. Anything you want to add to that, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously horrible, and sending prayers to everyone. Shout out to that guy. Catholic League is no joke, and pretty cool that he's a guy representing and trying to make up for his friend and all the storylines there. But obviously, senseless tragedy, horrible stuff, and never want to see anything like that happen. So it's unfortunate how quickly the world moves on, and we keep rolling. But that's where we're at this point.
So true. I do want to just real quick. And obviously, he's probably in a hospital bed. Ryan Quiggs 11. Ryan Quiggs 11. Where you can find him on socials, and you'll see it, man. You go to his Twitter account, and Like, he's just one of us, man. He follows all the same people we do. He's tweeting about the Sixers, tweeting about the Eagles, retweeting Shane Half. I was waiting to see something from you. I was honestly waiting to see something from you up there. But bottom line is, Philadelphia sports fans. So our thoughts are with you, man. Get better. All right. Not as smooth transition by no means, but let's keep it moving. And let's get on over to the 76ers. Sean Barnard, what do you say here? And I want to ask you this question because, in yesterday's game last night, Reggie Miller point blank said Joel Embiid's out of shape. And I know he didn't look great, but is that what we're still dealing with? And I guess we should expect it to some extent, right? Joel Embiid, big 7-footer. But should we expect Joel Embiid to still be dealing with conditioned situations? Do you agree with Reggie Miller's take? Like, I thought Joel Embiid didn't look great last night, but I don't know if conditioning was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, no, he didn't look great last night for sure. I didn't think it was a conditioning thing, or thought he was grabbing the knee a little bit, and particularly on like literally the second shot of the game, he contested on a 3-pointer and it sort of came down a little weird and was shaking it off after that. I'm done doing the guessing games as far as the injuries with him. I don't think like that's what was going on, that it was an injury or a fitness thing. Some guys don't play 10 out of 10 every single night, and Joel's certainly one of those guys in that category there. We didn't get it last night. We saw him kind of flip the switch in the third quarter, which to be honest only frustrated me more, like watching like, okay, we waited till we're down 30 points to make this, somewhat bought in here, Joel, and that's what happened. Like, he was pretty good in the third quarter. I think he finished with 13 points and 6 rebounds just in that period. Had a dunk, a pretty aggressive dunk that was clearly like a frustration dunk out of Joel there, but he didn't play good as a whole last night. He wasn't the only issue. I thought defensively he actually was pretty good early on, and the rest of the team simply wasn't. There's a lot of defensively, they were an absolute nightmare last night, and against a team like Golden State that plays at such a high pace, has so much movement, off ball motion, you just can't be casual the way they were last night, and let alone some of the decision making from Nick Nurse, like having guys like Kyle Lowry and Jeff Doughton attempt to guard Steph Curry. Yes, Steph Curry is who you put those guys on there. So I thought there were a lot of issues with this Sixers team. I don't think Joel's conditioning was near the top of the list last night, but certainly frustrating both on him individually and on the team.
Yeah, he finished 28 points, played 30 minutes. Again, I'm not here to make the case for anybody last night.
No.
I just wanted to bring that up because Reggie Miller was pretty enthusiastic with that take. Let's just put it that way. I get it defensively, sure, but what else could you do? What else can you do when Steph Curry is vintage Steph? When Steph Curry is the engine that, look, we often get into that conversation. Is he a point guard, shooting guard, whatever he is, he's incredible. Last night, he was dealing, running the floor, no look up, alley-oops, step back threes. Was he perfect from downtown? I think he was
so.
perfect.
8 of 8.
8 of 8. Like, you're not beating him. Like, I get it. It was lopsided, but like, I'll give more credit to the Golden State Warriors in that spot versus anything. Back-to-back games for the Sixers. Is that how you saw last night as well?
Yeah, no, I still am harder on the Sixers than I think you are from last night. You got to give Steph his, that he's obviously the greatest shooter of all time to ever touch a basketball there. But where my frustration was is that the work should have done beforehand. That it really wasn't until that third quarter that we saw Steph have that breakout and feeling red hot. Yes, he hit a couple in the first half, but it didn't feel like that Steph takeover happened until after halftime. And at that point, they had already dug themselves a 20-point hole. So, like, they did not make life easy on themselves. To me, like, the biggest takeaway is the defense just straight up was not good enough last night. I thought every single shot looked far too easy for the Warriors. Like, Draymond Green was taking rebounds and going coast to coast several times last night, that he was able to go and score down the other end himself. That just can't happen. Like, Draymond Green cannot be beating everyone down the floor for free layups, and that happened multiple times last night. Thought they missed Kelly Oubre, who's battling a little bit of a wrist injury. I thought he's been awesome buying in defensively and really setting the tone for this team. Tyrese, we're going to have the Tyrese experience has been weird this year, man. I can't quite figure out what's going on. He's also like angrier than I've ever seen him. Like, and I get like everyone's frustrated with how the season has gone, but it's kind of strange to me what sort of drastic flip we've seen from him from a personality standpoint this year. And it does still start down with Joel Embiid, that you need him to be leading the charge from start to finish. He was pretty casual at the start of that game, and I thought it took him until after halftime to lock in, and that the team runs with that. So a failure on just about every single angle. Golden State needed a win last night, and they found a way to get one. Was the second night of a back-to-back, and I think last night probably hurts a little bit less if it wasn't the collapse against the Kings the night prior. But nonetheless, so you drop 2, you're coming back from the West Coast, and they got to start getting wins once again.
Next game up against the Brooklyn Nets. I think that's tomorrow, correct? In
Correct.
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yep.
And then they return home on Monday against Phoenix.
Yep.
Who, they're up against it. The 76ers of Brooklyn Nets have already played this season back on November the 22nd, and the Sixers won 113-98. Hopefully that is more of the same on Saturday night. Again, it started off in a very positive direction from that road trip perspective, and then, it's easier said than done when you're going back-to-backs, but that Sacramento Kings game, if they're able to win that game, you're able to just take a little bit more from this road trip at this point in time. Now, kind of wondering, and God forbid if anything goes south against the Brooklyn Nets on Saturday, but these are professionals, so anything is possible at that point.
And they just got D'Angelo Russell too, so
yeah,
little change up there. He can catch fire.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Definitely a new buzz, new vibe in that building. So, again, that game being played on a Saturday. All right. From the NBA perspective, what's a big storyline as we head into the new year, as we are in the new year here on January 3rd? Not so much to catch. Yeah, whatever. We'll play that game here. Catching people up. Give me 2 big storylines for people that maybe haven't been paying too much attention to the association as we're heading into the new year, as we are in the new year. 2 big storylines to you, Sean Barnard.
Yeah, I mean, the Jimmy Butler stuff is making front page news right now of the Jimmy Butler experience has found a new location down there in Miami, and he is ready to be out of there. And this is what happens when you do business with Jimmy Butler, man. This is how it always ends, that it leads to, at the end, he's going to be mad. He's going to be causing a scene. He's going to be forcing himself out. Now, where it gets a little interesting with this specific situation is, for starters, I think this is the least in the right Jimmy has ever been in one of these situations. The frustrating part about him as a personality is in every single individual situation, you can kind of squint your eyes and see where he's coming from. I don't feel that way about this in Miami. I think the reality is this straight boils down to he wants a long-term significant extension. Miami doesn't want to give him that. And Pat Riley's been crystal clear about that, making comments about, well, he's got to make sure he's on the floor more if we're going to have those conversations, that he shouldn't be talking when he's not playing, things like that from some of the chirps. So I do think the relationship is fractured. The Shams report last night said he's open to anywhere but Miami. And Jimmy, as pointed and as directed as he is in his press conference, was talked about how he just wants to find his joy back playing basketball again, and was asked if that can still happen in Miami. And he replied, probably not. So I don't know where this goes from here. I think Jimmy's probably going to stay away from the team for the foreseeable future. I think Miami will probably try to trade them and do their best to get something back, but he's on an expiring contract. He has a player option for next year. I don't know what happens from here. I really don't see a clear destination for him. It feels like in today's NBA, the stars tend to get their way. So I wouldn't shock me if a team like the Houston Rockets or Dallas Mavericks or somebody like that wants to take a chance. Even the Warriors could be desperate enough to take a shot on him. But I think we're in for the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes once again. Is probably the most pressing story.
Any idea what that contract is? Is it coming up and this is just going to be a rental? How do you see that one?
$49 million for this year and then $52 million for next year, I believe. So it's a player option for next year. The Heat are apparently telling teams that he plans on opting out and becoming a free agent regardless. I kind of don't know if that's going to stand the test of time. For an example, here in Philadelphia with James Harden opted into his player option to guarantee him the money because it would have been more than what he got on the open market. That's the situation Jimmy Butler finds himself in. So I think even if, say, worst case scenario, the Heat can't find a trade and this heads down the barrel of disaster for the rest of the season, I think Jimmy still probably opts in, gets his money, and then we deal with this next year. So I'm not sure that there's a short-term solution. I think Pat Riley's crazy enough to call his bluff more so than just about any general manager in the NBA right now. So I don't know. I wouldn't call it a closed and shut deal. That it's just a rental.
I'm sorry. Could you tell me one more time what Jimmy Butler is making this year?
$49 million.
And he gets up there and says, I don't have the joy.
Yeah, I'd be feeling pretty joyous. I won't lie.
Ain't that some you know what? Unbelievable. But there's the haves and the have-nots, and clearly we are not have Sean Barnard. That is for damn sure. Golly. Anyways, and I just, we joked about in the Gambler Gang chat. I go, for some, look, I get it. We're in the world of content. We're in the world of, tweeting, look at me. Anything that pops, should the Sixers go get that? Should the Eagles go get that? Should the Phillies make this trade? And I have no no issues with that. That's fine. But there is a difference between like, yeah, I just want to garner some attention versus does it make sense? There was nothing that hit me going, bringing Jimmy Butler to Philadelphia, and yeah, you're on this show here, but to steal your line, you go, yeah, if you're looking for joy, I don't know if the Sixers would be the place that you want to land. I thought that was great. But at the same time, even if he was free, Sean, I don't want Jimmy Butler on this team. Like the Houston Rockets, what? They'd be out of their mind to trade for Jimmy Butler, and that's a team that could get the deal done because they have the pieces. But like Memphis Grizzlies, like I'll go down the list. The Dallas Mavericks. I don't know. The Dallas Mavericks have a little bit more potential. You got the Luke injury. You got Kyrie that could probably make them play. The Lakers. I don't know. Like, who the hell wants Jimmy Butler at this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, he's burned quite a few bridges already in his career so far. So I don't know. I think Houston I would circle as the most likely destination. I also think there's like a fairly significant chance that he doesn't get traded this year and this just drags on into the offseason. I think there's a higher likelihood of that than most of these situations when a star wants out here. But I do think I have Houston as my top kind of match, just for the reasons that, for starters, I think they desperately need a consolidation trade. That I think they have too many young talents that they can't all be a part of the foundation there. They go 11-man deep in rotations on some night. There's guys, the Cam Whitmores of the world, that I think are good players who just don't have that level of opportunity. Reed Shepherd, another example for guys in front of them. So if they are willing to sacrifice a couple of those young guys to move into the win now category, Jimmy is a guy that potentially could make sense there. The finances aren't a huge issue, and you can use Fred VanVleet as sort of like the baseline of the foundation of a contract, which helps get that done there. But you're running the same risk that you always run with Jimmy Butler, that, you never know exactly what you're getting. And to put like the Sixers slant on this, you can't get Jimmy without including one of Joel Embiid, Paul George, or Tyrese Maxey there. The obvious swap would be Paul George for Jimmy. But I think Jimmy has all the same concerns that Paul George has, with a much more volatile personality. And Jimmy also, like, let's not forget, goes through stretches. Like, there was a month here in Philadelphia where he just decided he wasn't taking three-pointers. Like, yeah. I think we all remember Jimmy Butler a little bit fonder than was the reality there. He certainly can have his peak of play, which is unbelievable when he's there and you get to watch him. But there's also a lot of nights, like last night with the Miami Heat, where he just did not care to play basketball. So for me, I have no interest in getting involved in the Jimmy Butler business ever again, really. We'll see what happens from here.
Yeah, our colleague Sam Ostry from The Score, he put a tweet out like 2 days ago, and he's like, man, it's going to be some fun stuff to watch over these next couple of weeks. And it was Butler. Ball gets moved. He's in the corner for a three and shoots it 1-footer. Like, it was so egregious. And, if I'm
Jimmy
Spo or Pat Riley, I would have went right down to the floor. I'm like, dude, get him out. That's how bad it was.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be honest, like, this hasn't just been like these past couple days. Like, there's been games like over the past couple months that I've flipped on. It's like Jimmy does not look like he wants to be here at all tonight. That he's just kind of going from corner to corner, going through the motions, swinging the ball, doing the stuff that you're not impacting the game. And it's like, yeah, he doesn't want to be here anymore. It's over.
Give me 30 seconds. What happened?
I think it simply boils down to he's on the final year of his contract before the extension. He wants to get paid. He was extension eligible as of last year. There's been no sort of talks, and Pat Riley has publicly come out to be like, well, you got to prove it and play more basketball more regularly if we're going to have these conversations. And also had kind of the chirps about when Jimmy was pretty loud about when the Heat were eliminated this past year, making comments like if I was, because he got hurt, obviously wasn't around. Like, if I was there, they're not playing right now, and all those sort of things. Even about the Celtics, he said that about, which is crazy too. But like, I think there's just kind of this friction between the personality and the front office that has bled into the business of, we don't plan on giving you $50 million to play basketball every year, which I think is a fair outlook at this point in Jimmy Butler's career. I don't think there's much more to it than that, other than they're not paying him the money that he wants, and they both sides feel justified in that.
Cousin Nicky checking, and he wants the Sixers to build around Kyle Lowry.
Nick Nurse certainly is ready to die on the Kyle Lowry sword, and boy, is he right now.
All right, great stuff all across the board there as far as the NBA is concerned. 30 more seconds, one more extended. The Cavs.
Yeah,
I only bring this up because Charles Barkley said, well, if the Sixers are healthy and they take on the Cavs in a 7-game series, I'm going to take the Sixers, which, fine, whatever. Get me to May. We'll have that conversation when healthy. At this point in time, though, Sean Barnard dominating 20 and what are they? They are 29-4. best record in the NBA, 28-5 for the Thunder, who are on a 13-game winning streak. The Cavs have won 8 straight. I know you've said that you think this team is for real this year. What are we saying about the Cavs right now, though, with that record?
Yeah, we all keep waiting for the wheels to fall off and for there to be a little bit of a losing streak, and there just hasn't been this season. Like, they're on pace for winning over 70 games this year. If they keep this up and stay on track the way they are, they're going to be in range for right in that mix for the all-time wins record. When we're talking about the 73-9 Warriors there, like that's what they're on pace for at this time. Now, granted, you drop 3 games in 1 week, and all of a sudden that's out the window, and that certainly is still a possibility for this Cavaliers team. But they play good hoops, man. Donovan Mitchell is the real deal. Darius Garland's still playing well. The Evan Mobley leap seems to have happened, and Jared Allen, a pretty good big man to have inside with him there. So there's a lot of talent on this roster. They are playing really good hoops and competing together. So I'm still not ready to be all in on this Cavaliers team, but I do think they're winning at a rate that we got to give them the necessary credit for. That this is not just, plowing through these random teams. They're beating good teams, whoever's in front of them on an every night basis, and you got to give them a little bit of credit because of that.
It's funny because DraftKings did have something, best record at they have a ton to choose from as always, but they were flashing something up with a pretty big number next to it. It's like, will we see somebody break the Golden State Warrior record? And it was a pretty big number, but with 4 losses at this point in time, like you said, you can go into a bad stretch, lose 2-3 games, and that's out the window.
Right.
But it was a pretty juicy number. So now that we look at it from the New Year perspective, I might be a little bit more inclined to think twice about it, not say wager on it, but I'm not seeing
winning.
it.
They just keep winning.
Yeah. That's it. That's all you can say. All right. Speaking of keeping on winning, let's go ahead and get on over to the NFL. We do have some games that have meaning, and none more important than what is taking place in Sunday Night Football. Vikings and the Detroit Lions. This game was already played in October, if I'm not mistaken, where the Lions won by 2 points in Minnesota, of course, Dome Stadium. So nothing on the outdoor perspective there. Lions 2.5, 56.5. Sunday Night Football. Both teams currently with 14 wins. One's going to win the division. One's going to get the overall 1 seed. One's going to get the break from the bye perspective, and the other one's going to be the 5 seed. Unbelievable turn of events there. But bottom line is, Sean Barnard, who do you see win this game on Sunday?
Yeah, I like the Lions to roll in this one, and my favorite play from a betting perspective would be the over of 56 here, that I don't think Detroit's going to be able to slow down this Minnesota team. As you mentioned, it is a dome, so you don't got to worry about the conditions or anything like that. Dan Campbell is an absolute madman that proved that last week by playing all the starters full-time and keeping the foot on the gas there. I think Minnesota is more legitimate than they've been given credit this year, that they're going to be a tough matchup for whoever they play in the playoffs, but I do think Detroit still has a top-notch of talent that they can't quite reach there. Jahmyr Gibbs, the real deal. Amon-Ra, Jared Goff playing well. It's just the defense that I have concern with, but I think there's going to be enough power offensively for Detroit to ultimately put up enough points to get the win here. So very excited for that matchup, but do think the Lions come out on top.
Yeah, very intriguing. That is the game with the ultimate meaning. There are some other games that have some meaning, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, that is the one. Also, with the final week of the NFL season, you do get the player incentives being Evans. He needs 5 catches for 85 yards to earn a massive $3 million bonus there. Saquon Barkley, 1 yards to set the NFL rushing record. He's not going to get that, obviously. Eckler, 145 for $125,000 bonus. There's some great write-ups out there. I know that DraftKings Sportsbook is going to be all over it at DKNetwork.com as well. So keep your eyes on that one. But some fun stuff as far as the NFL is concerned. And I know that you and I are not going to be in agreement with Saquon Barkley resting, but that is the path that Howie Roseman / Nick Sirianni / Jeffrey Lurie have decided. We'll see what happens.
Saquon Barkley, not a part of that slash.
No, that was clear. He came out and said, yo, I want to play.
Shout out to him.
I said, if a superstar player comes up and tells you that, the issue is that you have to play everybody
the line. Yeah. I guess, Brace, this will be my only pushback, and we did just put out a clip on social, which I think I summed it up a little bit there. We're underselling how special this is. Like I think I could make a strong argument, right?
2K is pretty special.
Yeah, the all-time rushing leader is incredibly special. One of one. I think I would argue right now that if I was in Saquon Barkley's shoes, it would mean more to me to break the rushing record against the New York Giants than it would to win a Super Bowl. He can't say that, nor should he, but I think that is the case right here. There's over 3,000 players with Super Bowl rings.
He's never won a division title.
Sure.
Super Bowl?
Yeah, there's 3,000 players with a Super Bowl ring. There's one rushing record. He can talk about being one of one in NFL history.
You know, you've heard all these arguments, but there is truth behind it. They're going to add another game that will be broken, and then you can't say anything about it because it's like, oh, you do it in 18. Like, him doing it with an extra game means nothing to me. I
disagree because he's got less carries than Eric Dickerson. He's had less opportunities.
I don't even look into that as far as that conversation is concerned. An extra game means nothing to me. It's the NFL. This is what you have to deal with. They've been changing things for decades. All right. Records get broken, but that's going to happen again. And I just don't see it standing. And what's to say he doesn't do it next year?
I think that's incredibly unlikely. I don't see a world where that is the case here. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Saquon Barkley behind that offensive line. Jeff Stoughton ain't going anywhere, right?
Sure, but for all the injury people, do we think we get all 17 from Saquon next year? Is that realistic? And I guess my biggest issue with the conversation, I hate that it's being talked about like it's mutually exclusive, that he can either set the record or they win the Super Bowl. You can do both or you can do neither. Both those are very much on the table. That you could
Understood.
He can win the record this week. They still go on to win a Super Bowl. He also can rest this week and they still don't win it. So I feel like I think we're underselling how special the rushing title is.
I appreciate that, but at the end of the day, give these boys off, man.
I get
give
it.
them off, and because that's where I'm at. It's about Super Bowl. I can give a damn about any record, but it's easy for me to say. I'm not Saquon Barkley. All right, great stuff, Sean Barnard. Be sure to follow him at Sean_Barnard1, and you could read all of his great content over at dknetwork.com. Sean, always a pleasure. Fastest hour in radio, my friend.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Bryce.
All right. As always, if you missed anything, at FoxPHLGambler.com. We'll talk to you.